Hi, my name is Kyle and I am from Hoey Insurance, and I'm going to talk about the exciting topic of liability insurance on a personal auto policy. I'm making this video in a series of a bunch of videos that are going to help bring some education to the field so people can learn about what they may need to get some insights and stuff like that. And hopefully I'll try and keep it a little interesting because I know insurance is a pretty dry topic, but it could be really helpful to you, so that's why I'm making this. Alright, so now to get the standard disclaimer out of the way here. Everything you're about to hear is in regards to coverage for a personal auto policy in New York State for myself. I am not implying in any way, shape, or form that you are covered for anything in any situation. If you want to know if you are covered for a particular issue, please contact your agent, or if you happen to live in New York State, feel free to contact me and see if I can do a review and help you out. But that's enough of selling myself and disclaimers. Let's get down to the topic at hand. So when you're searching for liability insurance in New York State, when I'm looking and I want to say, okay, what is liability for? What does it do for me? The answer is when I'm looking for liability insurance, I'm protecting myself from a liability exposure. What that means is if I'm found to have done something negligent, where somebody says, hey, you're at fault and I'm suing you for X amount of dollars, that's where liability insurance comes into play. What it does not protect against is intentional acts. So if you intentionally do something, then you're in trouble. And there's a bunch of other exclusions too, but generally unintentional, that's where liability comes into play if you were at fault at something by accident while driving your car. And so if I'm looking for insurance and I'm like, okay, I don't have a tight budget, I want to buy the minimum insurance that I can. What am I shopping for? The minimum that you can buy in New York State as of this video is $25, $50, $10. Now, what does that mean? What that means is that there's $25,000 per person, $50,000 per accident, and $10,000 of property damage. What that means in an application kind of sense is, let's say I get into an accident where someone ends up suing me and they win a judgment against me for $25,000. Well, that's great. That falls under the per person limit, and now my company will write the check and say, okay, we've covered your loss. Now let's throw a different scenario at you, and let's say someone wins a judgment for $50,000 against me. Again, one person. Well, okay, now they've won that judgment for $50,000, but my policy only covers $25 per person. Even though I have $50,000 coverage here, they'll only apply up to $25 for any one person. So I go, well, that's no good. So what happens? Well, the company will write a check for $25, and then the other person will turn to me and be like, time to cough up the rest of the money, and I'm in a bad spot. I'm going to get mad at my insurance company. I'm going to be mad at everyone, and I'm going to be out a lot of money. Not a good situation. But then let's talk about the property damage side of things. Say no one was injured in an accident. Say I managed to T-bone a gently used Kia, whatever, it happens. But unfortunately, I did some frame damage, so they're going to total the thing out. Thing's worth 20 grand still. Well, I only have 10,000 of property damage. Well, that's no good. So again, the company would write a check for 10 grand and say, good luck, and I'm going to go, I am not happy about this. I'm going to be very, very upset. So I'm like, okay, well, I don't think this is going to work for me. I want to go to the next step up. Where do we go from here if I want to look at something slightly more expensive? Well, then the next step up is generally considered $5,125, and that's doubling your coverage and slightly more than that for the property damage for all the fields. And I'm like, okay, so now all those scenarios where I didn't have enough coverage in the last one, now they would all fit under the coverage of this, and I wouldn't hit the policy limits. So you can quickly see how buying more coverage has advantages. Obviously, more coverage costs more, but despite this being over double the coverage, it doesn't come to over double the cost. As you buy more insurance, it gets cheaper to buy. Just kind of how it works. Now, some of you may have also heard of a different kind of insurance, which is something like this, which is 100 CSL. Now, what that means is it stands for Combined Single Limit. So all of these numbers that you guys see in these policies get combined into one single pot. And so it gives a lot more versatility to the coverage. The downside to that is that you have slightly less coverage. By comparison to this, which is the closest equivalent, you're looking at, you have about $25,000 less in coverage, but you have a bunch more versatility. In terms of cost, they're very similar, but the CSL limit is always slightly more expensive than the liability, and I think that becomes down to, in real world scenarios, they see slightly more paid out in that situation. A little insider look at things. And then you say, well, how does it keep scaling up from here? Just in case, that's what you're shopping for. The next step up usually goes 100, 350, and then it goes to 250, 500, 100. And then after that, what the majority of companies, when I'm shopping for insurance, what you got to start having the conversation about is whether you want to have an umbrella policy. And that's a separate policy, which I'll do a video on at some point. But basically, here's the range that you normally buy from, and you can always buy more. Never let anyone tell you differently. But this is the normal range that you see for a New York State auto policy. And umbrellas then become the next step over and beyond that in terms of how it works. But that's kind of like a brief overview on how liability works and different limits that you can choose. I hope you found this helpful. If you have any questions about liability, please ask them in the comments, or contact us for a review of your policy, whatever works for you. Because I want to answer people's questions, because I feel that people who are more educated about insurance, they're going to have a much better experience with insurance, and it won't lead to disappointments on either side of the spectrum, and I think everybody will be happier. So let me know. I'll be happy to help you out. Like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and I'll see you guys in the next one.